All right.
Hey, boys and girls. Oh, no. I thought we'd see what good.
It's really professional.
What the hell is going on here?
Suck it, Grr. Suck it, Grr.
Okay.
What the hell?
Anyway, I don't know what is happening. I haven't invited Scott yet or anybody. Anyway, Grr Streams is still on my lawn, invading my territory. Hopefully he shut me off. Let's see here. We can see what he's up to. Well, looks like he's good.
He stuck you in an infinite loop.
Oh my god, he's like LSD.
You're in a Vindaloop.
I'd rather have dabs than abs, which I do because I just left the dispensary, bitch.
Suck it, Grr. Suck it, Grr. Oh, this is riveting content. Fuck this. Let's see what else we got here. Anyway, so I was just really surprised by all of this Greg Locke stuff. I don't know who Greg Locke is. Apparently, he's got some mega church. I mean, there were like hundreds of people there in some of these clips. It was pretty amazing. And he's going on about witches and things of that nature. And
we got first and last names of 6 witches that are in our church. And you know what's strange? 3 of you are in this room right now.
Well, I love that.
3 of you in the room right now. You better look in my eyeballs. We ain't afraid of you, you stinking witch. You devil worshiping Satanist witch. We cast you out in the name of Jesus Christ. We break your spells. We break your curse. We got your first name. We got your last name. We even got an address for one of you.
That's a veiled threat.
We're gonna
best,
fuck
right?
you up. We got your first name. We got your last name. We're gonna fuck you up. Anyway, apparently he got that's his way of getting people to leave his mega church or whatever. He just simply calls them a witch and tells the congregation, and then they all get rid of him. So hang on a second here. I have to do a little inviting. Okay. Just a second. There we go. So what in the hell is... Yes. Okay, open up the stream. Anybody that wants to come in and talk. So we're doing a late weather report today. So there was Greg Locke and, of course, my restraining order against Grr because he played the cell clip, you know, where they're making fun of me, which I can't handle because I'm an atheist. And so I got took out a restraining order against Grr today. And they will be visiting his house to remove all sharp items like forks and, you know, plastic knives and things like that. Just kind of cool. But so who knows Greg Locke? And what do we know about Greg Locke? This guy is really interesting.
Incredibly concerning. Let's keep listening.
You so much as cough wrong, and I'll expose you in front of everybody in this tent, you stinking witch. You were sent to this church to destroy us. You were sent to this church to lure us in. You were sent to this church to cast spell. Listen, some of you been sick because you befriended that witch. 2 of you in my wife's ladies' Bible study, and you know who you are, and we're going to ask you to get out, or I'll expose you in front of everybody. We got all 6 of their names.
Hang on a sec. So Rebecca was on Grr Streams, and she said that she actually believes in witches. So she would potentially agree with this man, even though Rebecca wouldn't pull the shenanigans that he pulls. But I'm a little worried about Americans who believe that other Americans are taken over by some evil spirit or being operated upon by demons, or are engaging in witchcraft and magic and cursing them. And I mean, you can see what kind of a problem that could be. I mean, that could lead to violence very easily, particularly if you thought that somebody was in control of one of your children, or even in control of your mind. If you have that kind of a mindset that you believe that people's minds are powerful enough, or that demons and witches and Satan are powerful enough to get into a person's mind and operate them, then you're, I don't know, if you contrast that with mental illness, you know, mental illness is kind of like something is in a person's mind that we don't understand, that we can't deal with, and we're trying to we're basically afraid of that person because we don't know what that person is doing, right? Talking about witches and mental illness.
I'm sorry, I tried to cackle and it didn't come right.
That's pretty good. So witches and mental illness, I mean, what would be the difference between the, because that's what they thought mentally ill people were for a very long time, is that they were being possessed. What they're being possessed by is a kind of illogic that's very hard for us to understand and deal with. You know, like a paranoid schizophrenic who thinks somebody's watching him constantly, and that people are plotting against them. And you can't reason with the person by talking to them. So in a way, that's kind of like possession, right? I don't know.
It's similar. Well, the concept is similar, but it's not a reality. I mean,
yeah, it's not a reality. There's something wrong with them. And
however, there's some sort of study made of it, and that looks at it as a role that is embraced based on the lore and the traditions of. It's kind of the anti-religion to the main religion of the culture.
Yeah.
And so that's what a lot of people think witches are doing, in terms of when they're reflecting, in the negative sense, being the negative reflection of Christianity, is they're fulfilling some sort of role in terms of the redemption or the rescue that religion offers, making you feel like in some way you're part of the community, even though it's a negative part.
Yeah, but if you think about it, okay, if you have a mentally ill person that, say, hurt you, it did some violent act against you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would basically villainize that person if you didn't understand that they were mentally ill. And then in order to fix them, you would, what are your choices? If you villainize the person, you have no choices. You believe the person is evil to the core. So if you believe that this person is a host for a demonic possession, then that demon becomes the evil, basically sit-in for the mentally ill person. And you can still think, you can still hate, and you can hate, fear, and want to do violence against that demon. And so I guess it's kind of the same thing. You're demonizing the person. You're not doing what you should do. If you have a mentally ill person, the only way to deal with them is to understand that they're like if your car had a flat tire. Some of us get pissed off at our car when it has a flat tire, but does that really make a lot of sense?
No, especially when you kick it real hard and hurt your foot.
Right, hurt your foot. Yeah. So basically the same way with mentally ill people that do evil things, this sort of thing of hating them and judging them as being purely evil, that they're operating from some evil center, that allows us to do harmful, hateful, violent things to them, and then we become the demons, right? We're doing the same thing.
Or you're creating the other in a
because
in that sense.
Yeah, the person that thinks everybody is out to get him. Basically, there are a lot of people who will be out to get him if he behaves in a certain way. It's kind of bizarre, but I was surprised by Rebecca with this, with this belief in witches, in this belief that there could be people in her congregation that are witches, or that are purely evil people, or people that are possessed by demons. And I don't think that is a good way for us to deal with our fellow countrymen. I don't know about.
No, because the explanation is usually just boring old psychology or boring old brain, neurology and hormones and stuff being messed up.
Somebody got
that's
hit.
not to say we know the cure for it or even have the best treatments for it, but what are the chances it's some ghost of some sort, some ghostly apparition inhabiting your body, or maybe it's your neurology is kind of screwed up for whatever reasons.
And
genetic,
then
maybe.
The set of solutions would be entirely different in dealing with a truly evil demon, spirit, or even an evil person than it would be in dealing with a person who just had bad ideas, bad upbringing, or got hit on the head.
And also it depends on that culture's response to whatever spiritual activity that they perceive as taking place inside a person. For instance, schizophrenia is often welcomed or has been welcomed in more indigenous societies. They're seen as spiritual. Their hallucinations are more or less like visions, and so you kind of find a role to that, but it all depends on the general attitude of that culture towards it. And if I'm mistaken, I'm basically going off the shooting from the hip. Somebody in the side chat correct me, but isn't that true? Have our viewers make a comment in the side chat? Have you heard that kind of thing before? That it'd be good to get feedback from people who may have studied psychology and sociology better than me or more than me.
Yeah, and that brings up, there are positive things like intuitions and insights and sudden realizations, that sort of thing, that can be seen as coming from somewhere other than yourself. But then, from a naturalist point of view, they kind of do, because you're moving around in the world, you're interfacing with other people, those people are changing your thoughts, and then all of a sudden you come up with this insight, or this, this, oh my God, I just realized that is, so it's kind of like what we do in socialization and how we live our lives. Is we're always running into something. There was this Carlos Castaneda that did this series of books. He was I think he was an anthropologist, and he pretended, I think it was all a fake. He pretended to go to he pretended to go to South America, and he hooked up with Don Juan, the spiritual mushroom guy. And he wrote about 4 books, and we read them in the 60s, and we followed the ways of Don Juan. And it was really, really kind of interesting. But one of the things that you did with Don Juan is you went out in the woods and you sat there and you cleared your mind, and you got the impression that there was a path. You know, you could see where there was a path through the woods, and you may have been perceiving an actual animal path, or you may have been just over imagining that you saw a path. Well, you follow that path, and then you look again and you find the next part of the path, and you keep going, and you let the woods lead you to where you're going, right? You don't make any decisions yourself about whether you're going to turn right or left, or go forward or turn around. And the most remarkable things would happen to you on these trips. You would always run into something that was like you'd find a stone, or there'd be a weird ass bird cackling in the tree, or there'd be something, and you'd be like, oh my God. And then you'd start to concentrate on that and follow that. And then as you walked out of the woods, you'd be like, if it was a bird cackling in the tree, when you walked out of the woods, you would suddenly notice all kinds of other birds. And so what was happening is there was this interface between the world and your mind. And your mind was taking a part of the world, like the bird that you saw 5 minutes ago, and bringing it into the present and making you tune into the birds that you're seeing right now.
Is that sort of like Jung's idea of synchronicity?
It is. It's basically synchronicity is what I call the low-hanging fruit in the universe. So I mean, you could lead yourself on these wonderful journeys, and you would always have these great insights, and you would, you could solve psychological problems. It was just a way of immersing yourself in the world rather than relying entirely on your own habits and rationalizations.
Mm-hmm.
You let the rest of the world pour in, right? And so that's kind of the same thing, but that's all perfectly naturalistic and naturalistically explained. We are a complicated pattern finding machine as an organism in the world, immersed in the world, and a lot of things happen. So it's kind of cool.
I think there in our society, towards anybody who's different, there needs to be some emphasis on being accepting of others. You know, when the Christians or religious people sometimes say, hate the sin, love the sinner, that's usually thought of as bullshit. But like if there's somebody who is both antisocial, in the sense of being mentally ill and doing things that harm others or harm themselves, there's the idea of being more open to people, even though they're different. Like maybe learn a little bit about the nature of mental illness and how to respond to people, so that rather than otherizing people and making them marginalized, perhaps it's possible to include them in greater society, at least for healing purposes.
Yeah, if you have in your life, if you have a drug addict, an alcoholic, or a mentally ill person who is harming themselves or others, or creating great stress in your life, if you don't start out by forgiving them first for their illness or their weakness, you are going to do nothing but aggravate the problem and aggravate yourself, and end up hating somebody that you love. That sort of
course,
thing.
in our society, it would help if we actually took more positive action towards mental illness, like funding mental health facilities and making sure that families get the support they need in dealing with people who are mental health clients.
Yeah. Yeah, that.
Or am I just being a damn liberal? Come on, let me know, side chat.
Yeah. So I watched a documentary, or no, it was a movie. It was a depiction of one of the survivors of the Utøya Island shooting in Norway, where 67 children were killed.
Is 67? Is that where the guy sent 69. Out some guy sent out a manifesto or something like that?
Yep. Yeah.
Of course, there's usually a manifesto on these things.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And he killed another 8 people in a bombing in town just before that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the way Norway handled him and his rights and the way they treated him pissed me off, in that I wanted revenge. But that wasn't the way they did it. That's not the way they do their justice system over there. And even him in prison, he has far more privileges than some poor people in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And it just sort of, but the thing is, how are they that way? How are they so? I mean, how were they so powerfully capable of being concerned about this man's rights after what he had done to them? I mean, that was a different culture than us.
Yeah, I don't know how secularized Norway is. You know, I don't know what the rhetoric was before and during that time of crisis. But yeah, the idea that people have rights, they have inherent dignity. I can come to that conclusion as a secular humanist. I don't know why fundamentalists and evangelicals in our society can't as well. The foundation for it, rhetorical foundation for it, is there. It's just that people here in America are angry and
look at the basic
vengeful.
structure. The basic structure of Christianity, that is that you have free will, you have the choice to be good or bad. If you're bad, you roast in hell forever. You don't get, you don't get to go to a cell where you have a computer and you have books and nice bedding and good food, right? You get to go to hell forever if you're bad. So Christianity, that's one of the problems that I really have with Christianity is the judgment, the judging. I mean, even if they believe that they don't judge each other, the fact that they believe they have this ultimate big daddy judge who's going to pay everybody back in the end is just, I think it's part of the sickness, part of a really bad, sick way to think about other human beings, that are flawed. And I wonder how much of that actually feeds back into it and aggravates the problem, so that we end up driving these people to violent acts or whatever. I don't know. I'm sounding like a real liberal, ain't I?
Damn liberal commie.
Goddamn liberals, yeah, liberal commie. Hey, Midnight.
Hello.
Yeah.
How you doing, Midnight?
We're talking about demons and witches.
Yeah, well, you are a demon
Which
and a
demons?
witch.
We're talking about Grr Mania, actually, is our.
Yeah, Grr.
Yeah, he's definitely a witch, and I cast him out, and I call him out, and I cast him out in the name of atheism. Yeah. So Midnight, did you ever answer that question? No. Do we want to talk about that?
Not really.
Have you been there? You haven't been there since the last shoe dropped, right?
When was the last shoe drop?
Basically where the victim came out and a bunch of other things came out indicating that he may indeed be the person that did the crime.
Are we talking about
that
guy?
Yeah, that guy. Have you been there in the last 2 weeks?
Maybe, I don't know. Like, if you find me a day, like I said, I don't remember. If you show me that, then yeah.
Oh, you don't remember? How convenient. Okay. Anyway, I'm just wondering, if you've been.
It's not convenient. I just don't remember.
Okay. Yeah. I guess you are in a lot of places at the same time, right?
Midnight gets around the inner tubes.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. But
nobody wants to come in and play with us.
Yeah. The other thing that has been going on is Standing in Poop, Donnie Dum Dum, and Snake was right.
I like that. I
Donnie
like that.
Dum Dum.
Yeah, that nom de plume.
It's got a cadence. Yeah, it's kind of cool. They did a debate on ERVs, and Donnie trotted out all this stuff. So I went and did an extensive amount of research on the stuff that he was showing and that he was trotting out. And he was producing a whole lot of information from Evolution News.
May I ask, are you saying you were checking his sources?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, what a
And,
concept!
yeah, and pulling up all the papers, and he was pulling a lot of stuff from Evolution News. But correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Evolution News an old Earth creationism?
I'm not sure.
They believe in evolution. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Here we have a kind word from LPP.
Oh, hey, I'm doing fine, John. Feeling much better. Voice is still a little hoarse, but so anyway, the thing about ERVs that he was going on about, it was really interesting because he was, first of all, he was saying, how could there possibly be? He believed that there could be one ERV that mutated to the point where it became functional, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he said there's no way that a dozen of them could do that. There's no way that over 300 million years, a dozen ERVs or transposons could mutate to be functional. Okay,
Over 300 million years.
Well, yeah. Well, he doesn't believe in 300 million.
That's a significant fraction of a billion.
They've actually probably been around even longer than that. I think they found them way the hell back, but at least 300 million years. We know.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Transposons, right?
Speed. What are you doing? What are you talking about? Evolution?
Transposons, ERVs.
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
a quick question. Did you happen to think to send a link to David?
Oh shit!
It might be after work. He might possibly be able to join us.
He might actually show up this time. Anyway, so SFT was saying that it couldn't possibly have mutated to the point where it could do something, right? But then 5 minutes later, he said that God put those transposons into the genome so that we could have variation in species. So he was saying that these transposons jumped into a spot in the gene and then mutated and then gave like the tiger its stripes.
Why are we even taking him seriously?
And the lynx its ears, right? Mm-hmm. So he was saying basically that, first of all, he was saying, oh, things can't evolve. And then 5 minutes later, he was saying, well, God put them in there so that they would evolve. Okay.
Yeah.
So he's basically, and all the mechanisms that he talked about are the mechanisms that make evolution do what evolution does. Mm-hmm. But he's insisting, so he's kind of saying that God set it up so that things could evolve, yet he denies evolution, which is very, very interesting. I mean, and that's pretty much that is the primary statement from all of these guys: Evolution News, Creation.com, AIG, all of them. They're all starting to come around to this idea that God created this created heterozygosity, or basically that God built variation into the system. The only thing they will deny is that variation can make a change from a tiger ear into a dog ear. Right? So they won't go that far, but they believe that a tiger ear or a cat ear can turn into a lynx ear, or all these different. It's actually kind of amazing, but you understand how logically invalid what they're saying.
He's being inconsistent. He's
inconsistent,
essentially holding two opposite views at the same time.
Right. Yeah, and trying to basically putting them out like 5 minutes for one view, and then 5 minutes later he's completely contradicting himself, and he's putting it out in such a way that he really is, knows what he's doing, and he's making a point. And so it was just absolutely amazing to me. Yep. But I don't know. I'm working on ERVs again for a little while. I'm going to go back to kidneys.
Well, ERVs is an interesting topic, as well as kidneys.
Yes, kidneys are.
Grr Mania has gone over to the precept side.
Is he really? Oh, biblically, what is your response? Is that what he's doing?
Yep.
So, Grr, come on in.
Yeah, Grr. We came
Yeah,
into your stream.
You haven't been on long enough.
A little bit of reciprocity there.
Yeah.
No, man,
Yeah.
you do you. Why don't you put that burrito in the microwave and enjoy your supper and have a beer with it. Have a beer for me. I can't have beer anymore. You might as well have one.
Yeah. I can't have beer anymore either, except for non-alcoholic beer. That's working out pretty good.
I might have to invest in that. Of course, it just depends on the carbs in it.
Yeah. So after Grr streams, I ran down my hill and I built another 50, 60 feet of path down to the valley. Yeah. And
Did you do anything with that spot of land?
I'm going to go out and rake it tomorrow, and I'll be getting my seeds. And
that sounds like a good project.
I'm digging ditches. I'm cutting logs. I'm building paths. It's kind of cool, kind of fun. So
nothing better than watching something that you planted grow.
Right. Yep.
Grr has an atheism-shaped hole in his heart.
He does.
That's right. We need to find him a good cardiologist.
So here's the Donnie stream. Wonder if I have some things linked. I guess we could play them, eh? Nobody else is coming in.
Sure. Yeah, what's keeping everybody out? Is it me? Yeah. Am I being gruff?
I don't know. Oh, we got a problem. We got a problem, Houston. And what is our problem? Nope, not muted. Okay. Got it. Some of these things are, I put bookmarks down with as a paper.
What is a retrovirus? A retrovirus is a special type of virus that inserts its genetic material directly into a cell's DNA. Right here, what is an endogenous retrovirus? They are transmitted vertically, right, rather than horizontally through the germline and are thus inherited by a successive gen.
He got a lot of that wrong. So endogenous retrovirus is called I think it's called an endogenous retrovirus because it has certain proteins in it that makes it very similar to retroviruses. Mm-hmm. So what a retrovirus does is it's a little capsule and it's got a little protein wrapped around some DNA or RNA, mm-hmm. one or the other, right? And on that capsule, it's got these proteins that simulate things that our cells stick to. So it will stick to one of our cells. And then what it does is it starts to merge with that cell and inject its DNA into basically DNA or RNA into our cell. And if it's RNA, then it gets, it also injects basically a reverse transcriptase, and it will turn that RNA into some DNA, which gets into the nucleus. And then there's something called an integrase, which ends up inserting it in our genome. So, and then what our genome does for the cell is we basically start making other copies of those proteins until the cell is filled with them. And then they break out of the cell with their DNA and RNA, and they wrap it and break out of the cell, and they go on and infect another cell or another human being or whatever. And that's just, a retrovirus. And I don't know a tremendous amount about viruses standalone, but I know a little bit about the viruses, the transposons that are in human beings. Now, what happened is one of these DNAs, somewhere along the line of animals, inserted itself into our DNA, okay, but it was in a germline cell. So it ended up in the offspring of the parents, okay? So it copied into a germline cell, and it became a part of the DNA. And that thing had all of the capability of basically breaking out of the cell and killing the individual, except something went wrong with it in the process where it could no longer become an independent virus. Okay. But it could still copy itself and jump around in our genome. Okay. So if you imagine the parent has a child and the parent passes that transposon onto the child, right? Okay. Now, throughout the child's life, if there are no checks and balances, and there probably weren't in the beginning, then that transposon is going to keep replicating itself in the DNA of that child. And at some point, that transposon is going to jump into the wrong spot and it's going to kill that child. But if it doesn't kill the child until after it has reproduced, then now it's going to be passed on to still another generation. It's going to get mutated a little more, you know, so maybe a less dangerous variety pops up that doesn't kill you so fast, and it just keeps going on and on and on.
So there are people that die from transposons due to ERVs or whatever that have been inserted into their genome?
Called cancer.
Oh, cancer. Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things that.
But they can get that. It's injected in a one person who becomes a parent to a child who gets the cancer or whatever. Which is
it's
kind of it's very strange. It makes you kind of wonder, you know, we always thought genetics was such a clean thing, but it's actually kind of dirty, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because there's stuff getting in there and messing you up.
Very messy. Very messy. Let me see here.
There's viruses that are mutating. Oh, wow. Yeah. I've heard before that viruses cause cancer, or cancer is viruses, or something.
Yeah, there's okay, so when an embryo basically starts out as a single egg, and then it divides like 3-4 times, 6 times, whatever, and it goes through this process. Okay, at some point it starts to differentiate into an embryo. Okay, but there's a small part of this embryo, usually around here, that is called the germline. And these cells, okay, from the zygote to get to this blastula phase, it's called. There's about 4 or 5 divisions. You'll end up with like 64 cells, right? So we've had let's see, 6 divisions basically, and then it divides a few more times, like maybe 7 or 8 divisions, and it ends up in this germline right here. Okay, now the rest of your body throughout your life is all this stuff, right? That's what develops. Okay, I'm gonna try to make this a little bit bigger, that sort of thing. So these cells are dividing all, constantly. So they're dividing and growing, and you're growing as an organism, and there are mutations in these cells, right? Mm-hmm. But there are very few cell divisions for your germline. And your germline is what you're going to put into the next generation. So that's going to be offspring, right? So we are designed so that we have very few divisions before those germline cells are created. In the female, all of those eggs are created in that first few weeks of the embryo, and they last a lifetime. They can things can happen to them, but they're pretty well protected. They're not going to keep dividing and mutating. Okay. In males, it's kind of the same way. There's a lockdown so that very few divisions happen. But then when you produce these sperm cells, you do a few more divisions throughout your life, and that can be problematic. So you got to understand that there's the human being. So this is like your life. Okay. But you came from, some parent, and then you grew up, the germ cells just grew up for a little while, and that created a new life. Okay. All the mutations that happen here only matter to you, and they only matter to you because they're what's going to kill you. Okay, this is why we're going to get old and die, because these things are going to eventually they're going to copy themselves to a point where they don't work anymore, right?
Right.
But now the only thing that matters to evolution, basically, is that the organism, first of all, creates these germ cells here. Let me get a different color. So the organism has to create these germ cells right here, but it also has to live long enough to put those germ cells into the next generation. Okay. So if something goes wrong with mutations in the meantime, between now and the time you're 20 years old and you have a child, okay, something basically you may die and your genes will not get into the future. So if you have either bad mutations that you inherited from your germ cells, or you have bad mutations that happened a little bit later, say you got exposed to Chernobyl when you were 15 years old and you never had a child, well, then you're not going to make it into the next generation, that sort of thing. So it's you always have to separate these somatic mutations, so there's somatic, from the germline mutations. So somatic, the only reason we care about somatic is that we have to live long enough to reproduce. And we have to be cute enough to reproduce or whatever.
Right. You don't want a big cancerous mass on your face.
Right. But after that, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, like there could be a gene that kills everybody at 64 years old, and that gene would very likely get into the future because we would have kids before we would stop it. Right. That sort of thing. But it's these germline mutations where the transposons are going to accumulate. So if they jump in this part right here, down here in the germline, if they jump into the gene before the sperm cell or the egg is created, then that is going to end up in the future. So now you got 2 of those transposons. And then those 2 will jump about 15 more times, and pretty soon you'll have 1 million of them. And they keep jumping around in the genome. Now, there's no reason why those things have to be viable viruses. They can mutate, and they do. They mutate all the time. And like one thing that happens is you've got a strand of DNA right here, right? And into that strand of DNA, a transposon. Oh my goodness, I didn't change my color. So a transposon jumps into that strand of DNA right here, right? And it doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any effect on the genome. It jumps into a part that doesn't matter all that much. Well, then another copy of itself jumps into the gene right here. Okay, so now it has wrecked that first one. Like they frequently jump into the middle of themselves, of their own copies. And because they're sort of jumping stochastically, they could go anywhere. So the point is that these transposons will start to mutate, and they will quit being effective transposons. So in humans today, we have, I think, God, I forget how many million of them. We have 10 million ALUs alone. We probably have, let's just say 50, 60, 100 million of these retroviruses in our genome. Out of those, only about maybe 200 are still active and viable. They can still actually copy themselves. And there's 3 different types. There's 3 different species of virus that manage to live. So anyway, so these things are basically randomly jumping around in the genome. Some of them have specific spots that they like. Some of them have specific territories that they like. Okay, it doesn't really have to be exact. It just has to be. It has to be a certain kind of territory that they like to jump into.
It's just a section of genome that they're compatible with.
Yeah. That basically they're likely to jump into. So you'll have hotspots where a lot of these transposons will jump. The problem with those hotspots is that they jump on top of themselves and they end up mutating themselves over and over again. Okay. And then there are other spots where they jump in and it immediately kills you or kills the germline. So they never make it into the future.
Yeah, that's why I picked up this puppy of mine because all this talk of death is making me very anxious.
Anxious, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, death is all part of this whole mutation evolution thing.
And petting
And
puppies to make you not so anxious is also a part of this thing.
You can't have one without the other. I had a conversation with a friend today about death, basically.
Yeah, it's death helps you appreciate what you have when you're alive.
Well, what I said to him is, let me see, what did I say to him? I said to him, death is only an issue if you are still alive. But if you are alive and not dead, then death is not really your problem because you're not dead. Okay. When actually dead, it's no longer an issue. So relax.
Relax into your mortality.
It doesn't matter. You won't know it,
Have a mellow mortality.
It'll be fine. Hunter and Hake? Who the hell is
I've not heard of Hake.
No, I have not heard of Hake. Come on in, Jason. I sent you a link, damn it.
It would be great to have you come in, Jason.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm struggling with a way to explain this transposon thing, right? So that
some sort of illustration. I mean, illustration in terms of a word picture.
Yeah, so that it makes sense,
And who's JLP?
JLP?
Yeah, in the next little note here, he says Hake is JLP's producer.
Right. And I think the only way to actually explain transposons is to explain all of the genetics that you need to know what happens with proteins and all that other bullshit. And that's a whole long story. And we're not going to do that on a Friday night. So,
yeah, that takes some mental acuity.
But the thing is, when people like Standing for Truth say the things that he said in that debate and thinking that he's right when he's totally wrong, when he's got it all wrong, he had everything all ass backwards, inside out.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to solve that problem is to actually understand what is really going on.
Yeah.
Then you can see that, no, this whole idea about God putting transposons in Adam and Eve doesn't make any sense. And it drives me crazy. I don't know about you, but it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Trying to represent science without the competence or the care to,
it doesn't take a lot of competence, but the thing is, you got to kind of start at the beginning, and you gotta learn how to imagine the DNA strand and all of the little things and nuances in the DNA strand, and you slowly fill in the picture. And you do not have to be a molecular biologist or a rocket scientist to get a good grasp of it. The problem is that guys like me don't know how to explain it in a simple, how to unwind the yarn ball,
Science communication is hard sometimes, and
it's a devil.
And it's hard behind the scenes. You may eventually come up with the most clever diagrams or just turn of phrase or whatever to help people retain that information and understand it, but it takes a while to come up with. A lot of struggle.
Yeah. So Stephanie said a brilliant thing here. All of your food dies, so it can be a good thing for life. Your life too.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's why people talk about being worm food.
Yeah.
It's ultimately talking about getting back into that cycle of life.
I'm going to be weeping willow food. I want to be planted underneath a weeping willow because I love those trees. I probably created as many weeping willows as Johnny Appleseed created apples.
I've often thought about donating my body to a body farm, where they study how bodies decompose under different conditions, so that forensic scientists can use that as information towards making determinations about homicides and things.
Yeah, I don't like human beings enough to donate my body to anything that would help human beings.
They're just not worth it, huh?
Yeah, I'd sooner donate myself to animals and worms and fish and things like that. Oh my God, they have blue Chinese wisteria trees that look like weeping willows. I can't believe it. Weeping willow trees are pretty. They're pretty, pretty, pretty. What if chrome all works? Probably not. Oh, let's see here. Whoops. Oh,
So one day we'll look at a grave and wonder who he
there it
was
is.
and who's he.
There's
Did
a
I
weeping
miss?
willow. Huh? Oh,
Oh,
you
look
may-
at a tree and wonder who the tree used to
who
be.
he was, maybe, yeah.
Okay, that
Anyway,
makes interesting sense.
beautiful trees. Love them.
The thing about trees that I always found disappointing was the fact that various insects will get to them, or molds or funguses or whatever, and just really do a job on them.
Yeah.
You have to sometimes you have to do some maintenance on them.
So, the hell was I going to say? Oh, yeah. My oak trees are dying. I don't know why.
Me neither.
And they've been around for, I think, about 150 years.
Does your county agent have a website?
Pretty good size. Yeah, I could probably check that.
Y'all do have county agents in Minnesota?
The problem with those people, if I called one of them, they'd come out and tag all my trees and they'd cut them down. If they basically.
Oh,
if they
really?
got some. Yeah.
They're
I don't know,
really.
it could be road salt. It could be weather. Hard to
Oh,
say.
so you're thinking that they would do that if they thought something was spreading?
Yeah, if they even slightly suspected something was spreading.
Finally, somebody answers for all our tree problems.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Jefferson?
Howdy, how's it going?
What up?
It's going well.
Doing well. So, do you know who this Greg Locke is, or is that his name?
Greg, yeah, that name sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, he's just a raging fool of an evangelical fundamental pastor, and he has disagreements and issues with certain members of his church, so he decided to call them witches.
Yeah.
Oh, that ding dong. Yeah,
And
yeah.
threatened
No,
to expose them
yeah.
as witches, thus inciting the ire of his the regular members, so that they would harass them. So
Yep.
Yeah. And we were talking about that, and it isn't just harassing them or ostracizing them. I mean, this is potentially violent.
very
This-
violent, yeah, because people
Could be a
feel warranted to kill them because of what the Old Testament says.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not real good at I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the video, but 'cause I was away for a little bit, but yeah, he's not great at nuance. So if someone were to just kind of misinterpret that, like, you shall not
Right.
suffer a witch to live, well, I'm going to take that literally because I'm a literalist, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was also kind of getting into the habit of doing some because I think he got kicked maybe twice from YouTube. I mean, he's been banned from more than one social media platform because of Trump election stuff and then COVID misinformation.
Yeah, he suggested that it was witches basically that were causing COVID, not COVID, not the virus.
Yeah.
And he did a bunch of he's a climate change denier. He checks all of the fucking boxes, every single one of them.
The weird thing is, the Bible doesn't really spend too much time on witches. Don't even really define what they do and what makes somebody a witch and what their practices are. And maybe people need to take that as a hint.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible does actually lay out a story with an actual witch.
Yeah, the witch of Endor. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
Really?
and she actually actually knows her business. And
she was more like a necromancer, wasn't she?
Yeah, and essentially what happens is that Saul is wiping people out, and Saul had this kind of famous disagreement with Samuel, and Samuel's dead. Well, Saul's having some issues because he's doing things that he's not pleasing God, but he's wiping out witches left and right, and divinators and mediums and all this other kind of stuff. Any of these people that practice woo.
The
Well,
divinator.
I can't remember all the details of the story, but he needs to talk to Samuel. So it's he goes to the witch of Endor, and she's terrified because she thinks that it's a trap, that he's going to kill her. And he's like, no, I really need to speak to Samuel, and she successfully summons him, and he speaks with Samuel. So. Yeah, no. If you take the Bible literally, then witches are real, necromancers are real. So.
Yeah, but where do they get their power?
Tiamat. I was just gonna go all the way back to other ancient Near Eastern traditions and say, yeah, she got that skill. She got that from the powers of chaos.
Powers of chaos. Okay, I didn't know that those were a thing in the Bible.
I don't think they are, but.
Yeah, there's spiritual beings that have power, so they draw their power from other spiritual beings.
So Rebecca, if you have a mentally ill person that murders somebody, how do you know the difference between them being mentally ill, like getting a conk on the head, or being possessed by a demon?
Well,
Or having a chemical imbalance in their brain.
Well, I think you would start by assuming, the something a medical issue, rather than a spiritual issue.
Right.
But if there are certain signs that happen, then you might realize it's a, spiritual rather than physical thing.
What would those signs be?
Well, if somebody starts speaking in a voice that's not their own, if they start doing like very unnatural movements for a human body, that's a pretty good indicator.
Like Joe Cocker?
I think more Linda Blair
Who's
from
that?
The Exorcist.
Joe Cocker, the singer? I don't know if you've ever watched
I
him
don't
before.
know. I don't know who
Yeah,
that is.
look up some videos of Joe Cocker.
Yeah.
singing.
And
He
look up
does
the
this a
one
lot
with
because that's just his singing motions.
look up the one with him where he was singing on Saturday Night Live, and John Belushi was imitating him while he was singing. So Belushi was out there over exaggerating Joe Cocker's moves, but Joe Cocker was like, he had this bizarre way of moving, that I'm pretty sure you would have thrown a Bible at him, Rebecca, if you saw. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I think that's dangerous. I think it's dangerous to think that there are spirits that possess people and that it's anything other than something that could be fixed or could be dealt with in another way, other than resorting to the ultimate evil has taken this person over.
I don't know if Jason has told us why he's not coming in, but he makes a good point here.
Seems to be a derivation of God of the Gas. Someone does something unexplained there, which, yeah.
Well, no, it's not if someone does something that something happens that's unexplained, right? I mean, look, and you said about how would you know if somebody's demon possessed, right? But if we're talking about witches, we're talking about people who are actively involved in the occult, who are actively, like casting spells and trying to tap into spiritual power. So that's something totally different.
Hello, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, what's up?
Good to see you.
So
I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stay. My wife's making dinner, but I thought I'd just pop in. So,
What time should we come over?
hey, got a full table. Got a plate ready for you, David. No, I got a plate set for you.
My name is Scott.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shit.
That's okay. Just don't be embarrassed. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. So if there's somebody who's possessed by a demon and the demon is smart enough not to get caught, he would act just like a mentally ill person.
Well, actually, probably some of the people that are most under the heaviest influence of demons are not the ones that are like, doing stuff that would be obvious, like that we would identify as
like
Do you
me.
see- No, not like you. But so I do think like one of the goals that they would have is to stay hidden, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to influence you, to put ideas into your mind and to influence you in ways where you think it's you and you don't realize that you're being influenced.
Yeah, when I went to see The Exorcist, I'm pretty sure that a few rows down from me, there were several demons there getting educated on what not to do in order to get caught, not get caught, right? I mean, they were watching too, right? So
Probably.
There's
I'm
a
not
very
that dumb.
there's a very important aspect of this, and that is, where do you get your information about how demons work and
Yeah.
how demonology works? It's not in the Bible. The Bible says to pray and things like that, which is very basic. We do have that nice, interesting story about the Witch of Endor, but there's nothing prescriptive that I could take with it. So where do you get your information about how demons are structured, what their
Yeah.
influences are, how you can what's the word in diagnose, as
Yeah.
well as what treatments to prescribe? It just doesn't seem to be there or provided by the Bible. So where are you going for your information? And I'll be
Well,
right back.
actually, there
Listen to
is quite a lot in the Bible about this. I mean, a third of Jesus's interactions, a third of the healings that he performed were casting out demons. So you have his interaction with, the legion demoniac that had a legion of demons. So we understand some things about demons from that. Jesus spoke about it. He said when a spirit leaves a man, an unclean spirit leaves a man, it goes throughout arid places looking for a place to rest, and it comes back to its former house, and it finds it clean and put in order, and it brings with it 7 spirits that are worse than itself, and the state of the person is worse than when it was cast out at first. So we have like examples. We have Saul, who was troubled by a tormenting spirit, and then you have Ephesians. It talks about how we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and spiritual authorities in the heavenly places. So, I mean, there's quite a lot, I think, that tells us about what's going on with spirits. But I do think it's, dangerous to kind of go deep into that world and create all these hierarchies. I do think there's a hierarchy. But of course, in kind of delving into that stuff, a lot of people get too close to it. They get too involved in it, and it can be quite seductive. I mean, to be honest with you guys, I used to be very intoxicated by occult stuff before I was a believer. And it like, if I wasn't following Jesus right now, I would probably be doing all kinds of occult stuff, because it is, when you get involved with it, I would say the word is intoxicating.
So Rebecca,
Mm-hmm.
does that picture look like kind of what it's like to come onto my channel?
I don't know, Mike. I think you're closer to Jesus than you're giving yourself credit for right now.
I've heard that so many times in my life. It is amazing. Anyway, we'll just ignore that.
I think the whole biblical discussion of demons is just a reflection that they just had no concept of modern medicine. And that I think it makes total sense that at the time there are ailments and illnesses and diseases and mental and physical impairments, that the most logical conclusion that could be made at the time was that it's a spirit or that it's a demon. And I'm sure you would agree that probably there were situations in the past where people attributed something to a demon when in reality it was some psychosis or mental issue or some physical ailment. Wouldn't you agree that like that's likely for some things?
I've heard modern stories of that happening.
Sure.
So absolutely, but that I disagree with you that they were like that the stories in the Bible were misattributing. I think, you know, we have physical maladies in the Bible that Jesus heals that are not connected to a spirit, and then we have physical maladies that were connected to a spirit. And so you know, I think and I don't think these are like necessarily mutually exclusive either, you know, like there's a whole range of things that can be going on with a person.
Like if you want to make the take the position that like in modern medicine, current ailments like schizophrenia or other like mental issues or physical issues are, even though we've diagnosed them as a medical ailment that we know what the etymology is, we know their origins. If you want to say that's a demon, then
I'm not saying that.
Okay, well then what you're saying is that there are some things that are not demons, that are these physical ailments, and then there are other things that are caused by demons and spirits. But you would agree that 2,000 years ago they didn't have any clue around these medical issues. They weren't able to diagnose them. They didn't understand what they were.
Yeah, they would basically they would bloodlet them. They would give them laxatives. There's a couple of other things they would do, which was essentially the medieval medical model.
I mean, if somebody had a
that
stroke,
they didn't let go of until the 20th century.
If somebody had a seizure and started foaming at the mouth, that could easily be attributed to a spirit or a demon. So I guess when you say that what's in the Bible are not medical ailments, I just don't see how that's even possibly how you could make that determination.
Right.
Well, I believe the Bible, so I mean that's how I make that determination, is because I think they were accurately reporting what was happening. So, but I understand if somebody doesn't believe that, you know.
I mean, if you want to take the position that what's in the Bible, the Bible talks about demons. That your position is that you have faith that the Bible is true, and that's where you're coming from. I'll say that's fine. You can have that position. I don't think that's a rational or reasonable position. I think you're just saying I have faith in it, but you're not using any reasonable methods to evaluate that information. It's okay to do that. It's not, but you wouldn't say that it's a reasonable way of coming to a decision.
Well, if I have reasons for believing the Bible, then I think it's reasonable to believe what is presented with regard to demons in the Bible, right?
Well, I mean, I could say I have reasons that pink elephants exist, but are those good reasons that are substantiated with the knowledge that we have? You would say no. Just because you think you have reasons that pink elephants exist does not mean that that's actually reasonable. That would be my response.
Yeah, so you would have to also believe that they knew back then when they wrote the Bible the difference between who was mentally ill and who was a demon.
Which they probably didn't.
Yeah, and I don't even think they had a concept of mentally ill, particularly other than, person who's aberrating.
Well, there's another issue too, because like when we started this part of the conversation, we started with the Witch of Endor, and the Witch of Endor in that part of the story is not depicted as evil. She's not talking to a demon. She summons the spirit of Samuel to speak with Saul, because Saul can't get any guidance from God, because God's not communicating to him in the form of either the prophets or from casting a lots, that kind of thing, and kind of the usual things. So that whole story plays out. He goes to her. She's worried that it's a trap and he's going to kill her. He swears that he won't. She summons Samuel. Samuel and Saul have a conversation. Saul is freaked out by this. Not only is she okay, but then the next day she actually prepares food for him and his men. so that they're prepared for their confrontation with the Philistines, which Samuel more or less, assures him, yeah, this is doomed to fail because you've been screwing up. So in that case, if anybody is to read that, then the Bible is now telling people that communing with the spirits of long dead people is possible. That witchcraft or whatever this kind of necromancy or whatever, is possible. And there's no real indication with that particular story that this woman is demonically possessed. She just has this ability to be a medium.
Wait a minute. I didn't say she was demonically possessed. You guys brought up demonic possession. But with regard to her, I do think we have reason to believe that what she was doing was evil, right? Because it was clearly established in the laws of Israel that what she was doing was forbidden. And she even says, like, when she's I could be like kind of botching this a little bit, but as far as I recall, she was like scared to do this for Saul because, it wasn't supposed to be allowed.
No, it's because he was killing them all. He was killing everybody.
Why was he killing them? Because this was not allowed, right? This in Israel, you were supposed to kill a witch.
But he wasn't killing anybody that was a prophet and anybody that was capable of casting lots for him. That was cool. But anybody that would speak out against him and claim that they were communing with spirits, Saul conveniently had them murdered. Until he needed somebody after his purges, and then he's like, I need to talk to Samuel, even though Samuel's dead. Where can I find a medium? And they're like, well, the ones you haven't killed have run for the hills, but there's one in Endor. And so they take him to the sorceress of Endor, and that's where they have that. So she's scared, but word has gotten to anybody that's engaged in any of those practices that if you're not in good with Saul, he will kill you for doing that. But it's not indicated that she's an evil person, that she's divining anything evil. She's on Saul's hit list. And at this point in Saul's narrative, Saul isn't known for doing things that are good. Like, God is actually not giving him advice anymore, and anybody that is prophesying about him is basically telling him how he and his sons are going to inevitably die in battle because of Saul's pride. So...
Plus, it does establish that witches are able to pluck people out of heaven to communicate with you. So, that's another strange thing.
I mean, it's a strange thing. It is what the Bible records, so I don't have a problem with it. But I mean, whether or not people were doing it doesn't say whether or not it's evil, actually. But what does say it's evil is the laws that were given to the Israelites, which says it clearly forbids being a medium or doing any kind of divination. So, like, there's a prohibition against that completely. Of course, people weren't following the laws many times throughout Israel's history. So this is an example of them not following what God wanted. It was forbidden to speak with the dead. And, but, it's definitely something that seems like it can be done.
But by the time you get to that point, when this gets presented to a kid in Sunday school, which when I was a kid, it was presented in Sunday school, it's presented as if people should not you should not attempt to commune with the dead because what's going to talk to you is like good old-fashioned recipe for a horror film, right? Like what's going to talk to you is not your dear departed grandma, it's Beelzebub, dressed up like your grandmother and looking to eat your face, right? That's sort of how like modern Christians usually spin this. But the issue, what's weird about this story is that, okay, there is this sanction against doing this, right? Witches engage in these kinds of things. But witchcraft may or may not be, it probably included more than just, talking with the dead. But it seems like a weird prohibition. It's like you don't go don't deal with any of these people, don't suffer them to live because they talk to the dead and it works. You can talk to the dead. It like Saul gains insight by having this woman successfully bridge the gap between the land of the living and the realm of the dead so that he can talk to Samuel and Samuel gives Saul some advice.
Now, just for clarification, there are some Bible scholars, exegetes, who will make the claim that really wasn't Samuel. That was a trick, and it really wasn't Samuel. and also there's another argument that's used, but I can't remember what it is at the moment.
So
that
Rebecca,
happens all the time. I'll have 2 arguments or 2 points and can only really remember one. So I'm going to shut up now.
I have a question, Rebecca. Am I capable of doing witchcraft? I mean, could I do certain things that would
Sure.
be, and then I would become a witch? So anybody can
course.
do this, any human being.
Yep.
But how would you know what to do? That's the thing.
Guys, I'm not going to
there's
teach
no
people how to
information
become
in the
witches.
Bible
Okay,
about
Come on, come on. Come on.
Where
There's no
is
such
this
thing as
body of
witches.
knowledge that should be open
Okay.
to scientific scrutiny?
Rebecca's going to teach us how to become a witch.
Okay, yeah, please.
Don't do that. Come on. There's no such thing as witches. Come on, guys.
Okay, so
I know,
Rebecca,
that's what I'm saying. But if there were, how would we? If it's true, there should be a body of knowledge that we can access and test. And where is it? Where is
You
it?
guys with your testing. You're
Yeah,
so funny.
evidence.
I mean,
God, you guys with the
look,
dang
look.
science. Come on.
No, I
Science.
mean, it's just not everything is, testable by science. So,
Just
Um,
about everything.
sorry,
wait a minute.
guys.
Wait a minute. No,
but
if
I do think there are
What's-
bodies of things. I mean, you can seek out people and books and things like that. But I'm not going to teach anybody how to do this.
What's one thing you can't be tested by science? Name me one thing that we can't test by science.
The Witch of Endor, apparently.
There you go.
I mean,
how
like-
about love? How about love?
We can measure love biochemically. We know we can. We
Oh my
you don't
gosh!
you think that's wrong?
You
Yes,
can
I
test.
do.
You can test
Absolutely.
love
Yeah, we
also
can
just
test it.
observationally by that
We
guy.
can.
He just ran into traffic to make sure that little kid doesn't get run over. There's all sorts of ways you can infer intent from behavior. Is it 100% proof? No, but we're not talking about that.
Well,
We're
if
just
somebody
talking
could
about
fake behavior,
observational things that can be repeated. I'll bet you there's a lot of people, and my voice is rising because I'm excited, not because I'm angry.
Okay.
I hope it doesn't sound that way.
so
There's observational things that can be repeated because there's going to be lots of parents that will run out into traffic to save their child or even somebody else's child. So there are things out there that are measurable and determinable, and if these dark arts are true, there has to be some body of knowledge that enables people to access it, and there has to be some sort of
Is that right?
result that can't be accounted
That
for
ain't
by
right.
science. And I'm just wondering, where you get that. And I'm not calling upon you to provide it. I'm just saying it just seems like there would be that out there.
I mean, I'm a hard determinist essentially, so I think everything breaks down to physics, biology, and even if we can't measure love,
scientist.
if we can't measure love like exactly specifically, we do have a lot of knowledge around why, like like your dopamine levels and different biochemical levels that are conducive for people being in love and having different kinds of love. But I understand that it's not fully fleshed out, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an explanation for that. And I think that to say, science, there's something science can't ever know, I'm not sure that's actually the case.
So, Rebecca, I was talking earlier about Carlos Castaneda, and he worked with, I think it was like a South American shaman, or you could call him a witch.
Toltec Mexican.
Is that what it was? And,
Yeah.
Anyway, he had this method that I followed, that me and my friends followed for quite a while. One of my friends got freaked out and he quit doing it because he had a problem with birds. But what we would do is go out in the woods, and we would basically clear our minds and visualize a path, and we would keep following the path, and we would note what we found. And it kept building and building into a narrative. So it brought us on a journey. Would that be, in your opinion, witchcraft?
Okay, I'm kind of confused about what was the purpose of this?
Okay, the purpose was to get insights or to make discoveries. Okay.
From yourself or from an outside power?
From all of the above. basically from the world, from yourself, from the universe, everything. So basically, it was to go out and follow a path without any preconceived goal in mind, and to let the path lead you until you made some sort of an insight, or you had some powerful feeling, insight, or direction in your life. Would that be called witchcraft?
I think what would make it witchcraft or not witchcraft is who you're directing it toward. So like if you're asking for insights from the creator, then I think you're on safe ground. And if you're just looking for, or looking for it from yourself. But when but when you're saying like if you're just having meditation within your own mind and taking a path in the woods and letting yourself go wherever, if you're calling to the creator or just looking meditating within yourself, I think then it's not a problem. But if you're asking any other power to guide you, so I mean you said the universe, I don't know what you mean by that.
Okay, it was basically by the universe, I mean none of the above. I mean, I wasn't asking from any particular source for this power. I wasn't identifying where it was coming from at all. I was just seeking it. So I was seeking the insight. Whatever gave it to me. In fact, if you have something in mind about what is going to give it to you, you're probably not going to get it. So you have to clear your mind entirely and just be open to whatever, to everything that may pour in.
I think Castaneda referred to it as the second attention, but certainly one of the things Castaneda talked about was your spirit animal, like us connecting and doing shape shifting, like connecting with the animal that is most associated with you, being able to I'm imagining that's blasphemous.
Yeah.
From that's an area that you would consider not of God.
I don't think you should connect with a spirit guide of any sort other than God. So any spirit guide, like a spirit animal or something like that, is not, it's
See,
not.
The problem is with this is that all these positions are very subjective. It's very subjective to say the Bible is the book. Like, it's just like with multiple religions. Somebody can have another religion and say, I was raised with this. I have a connection to the Bhagavad Gita, and that's my holy book. Right. And then you have the Bible. The Bible says something else. I'm imagining you would say people that follow Krishna, that's not biblical. That's praying or like Hindus having many gods. You're like, that is not that. Is that akin to the black arts, witchcraft? It's not. You're not praying to God. You're praying to some other god.
Aren't there certain behaviors that are akin to witchcraft that they talk about in the Psalms or the Proverbs? But that's more of a poetic thing. I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting.
Well, I guess I think a lot of times people who grow up in Western culture, we want everything to be very clear cut, and we want defined boundaries. And I don't think God works within the defined boundaries that we would like. So, while I think the Bible is, inspired by God, that doesn't mean that I would assume that people in other religions are also not contacting God. And I mean, Jason, I wrote a book on this. Like I wrote a book with my experience with Muslims, trying to help Christians understand that, many Muslims have a very close connection with God. And I believe it's the same God that I'm in contact with. There may be different understandings, different information that we have. But like God isn't like, he is not bound by like us having all the right information. If God waited to connect with me until I had all the correct information about him, I still would have no contact with God, right? So like God works with people where they are. So if, a person is truly like, if they're seeking truth within another religion, I still think God can get through to them. And in fact, you know, I know of someone who was a shaman, and as she developed and got in contact with her spirit guide turned out to be Jesus. Okay. And, you know, now I actually don't know if this woman ever became a Christian. But, you know, because she hadn't become a Christian at the time that, you know, I knew of her. But I do believe that it's possible that Jesus really did appear to her, even though she was, you know, seeking truth in the way that she was raised, you know, and in a way that, you know, what doesn't fall within the boundaries of Christianity, but that God has ways of getting through to people with where they're at. If you guys have seen the movie Life of Pi, I really love that movie. You know, that where the guy, the main character, he wants to get baptized. He's also raised Hindu. He also finds, you know, comfort in Islam. So he's got kind of like a religious pluralism going on. But there seems to be something true that he's drawn to throughout, you know, each of these religions. So.
Well, the only thing I just kind of give my perspective is that I would just reemphasize that if we have multiple religions and you're saying like people can come to God in different ways through different religions, I would say that you could include Satanism and paganism and all kinds of certain things to say I could reach God in these different ways. That I think that just what that does is that emphasizes that this is all extremely subjective, and that it's and just last thing I'll say is that the brain is a very powerful thing. We have the ability, like we know for a fact that the brain fills in gaps to make sense of things that we can't make sense of. That it will naturally find patterns where there are no patterns because the brain is trying to make sense of it. I think that religion is an example of that. Our brains are magnificent products of evolution, and religion is a product of our brains. And we have seduced ourselves into saying, there's this truth, and we'll surround things in all sorts of ways to show that truth. And I think that what you were just saying is an example of that. You're like, well, I believe in the Bible, and the Bible is very literal, but guess what? All these other religions, well, maybe they were true too. And
no, wait, I have to clarify that. I really have to clarify this, because I am not saying that all religions are true. I'm not saying that like any religion is okay. What I'm saying is like, and actually I've been accused of saying that. So, and people have made videos against me. Christians have made videos against me on this. Okay. But you have to understand, I believe Jesus is the way. He is the savior of the world, and that anyone who is seeking truth will eventually find him. Okay. But so I'm not saying it's okay to just be a Hindu. Okay. I'm not saying it's okay to just, you know, be whatever religion you want, because we're all going to end up in the same place. That's not what I'm saying.
Did.
Well, what I'm saying, no, I didn't. I said God.
Well, you said the path, right? You're talking about a path, the path to God. Okay. And you're saying that there can be other paths, that other people may take a different path to God.
Well, I didn't say that. I don't believe I said that. If I did, I did not intend for it to come out the way you're interpreting it. What I said is God is not restricted with only working with people who are already in the correct religion. Okay. So God is working to bring people closer and closer to the truth about him. And he's doing that with me. And as much as he's doing it with anyone else in the world, I don't have all the truth about God. Now, I may have more truth than someone who is in Hinduism, but that doesn't, but you know, they may have experienced God in ways that I haven't. A lot of my Muslim friends, I would say they've experienced God with provision for them in hard times in a way that I haven't. But that doesn't mean that they are following God like as God wants to be known in the complete revelation of Jesus Christ. So what I'm saying is God has the freedom, and he does work with people who are in the, an incorrect religion, but working with the truth that is present in that religion, but ultimately to bring them to the Savior of the world.
But the notion of an incorrect religion really doesn't track when you made statements before, like God doesn't, conform to sort of the definitions and limitations that we might impose on him. But that would just be religion. So that seems to me that one could just gather from that all religions are kind of marred by arbitrary definitions and limitations that our minds put on us, and trying to say, well, ultimately it has to come back to Jesus. Let's say you have an individual, stretching from that, the implication is you have somebody earnestly seeking the truth based on what you said. That should inevitably lead a person to Jesus. But what if a person dies before their quest for truth does get them to Jesus? They only get as far as, say, Zen Buddhism or Shinto or something.
Right.
Does God still condemn them because they didn't make it to the one source?
Well, actually, there's a passage in the Bible. Jesus tells a parable about the sheep and the goats in Matthew chapter 25, where he says he's going to call all the nations together and separate them as sheep from goats. And the sheep are surprised that they're being welcomed into his kingdom. So I think there's a lot of people who are going to be surprised that they're being welcomed in when they realize that Jesus is king. But I'm an inclusivist, which means I think that if somebody is seeking the truth and they are, they will, even if they haven't found confess Jesus as Lord, that they can still be saved by Jesus. They're not being saved, in some other way. They're being saved by Jesus, but they were given a certain amount of truth, and they followed that truth. And what was it that Jesus welcomed them into his kingdom for? He said, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was a stranger, you invited me in. And so when I was sick, you visited me. So those who are seeking the truth about God are going to grow in love for other people, and they're going to seek to help those in need. They're going to seek to do the good works that Jesus has desired. And so the Holy Spirit is leading people to do that. So I think that they could, be their revelation of God, maybe they may not have the full revelation of Jesus Christ, but the small revelation that they had, that, the Holy Spirit saying, love that person, help that person, they responded to that. And because of that, they are welcomed in and saved by Jesus.
But that just kind of sounds like it seems to me that given enough time and enough revelation, anyone should be in that. So it seems to me that what you'd be arguing for, it would be more consistent to just say universalism was true. Because whether or not those people are consistent, you don't keep like a score system on that, right? Are you basing people on like how receptive they are to it? I mean,
yeah, I'm saying, look, it's not for me to judge. Jesus is the judge. But so I cannot look at any person and say, oh yeah, they've, shown that they are seeking the Lord. But anyway, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I got distracted by that comment.
Two things. Yeah. Okay. There's a question for you. And also, we have somebody new in the room, Corey, who
Hi, Corey.
Don't know. I don't think. Do I know you, Corey?
I think you do. I'm. You familiar with Grr Streams?
I remember your voice.
Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I do. Yeah. Got it.
Anyway. Charioteer, yes. I do believe that happened.
Okay. So before you said something about Hindus and truth, and that you may have more truths. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Is that how you put it? Okay, that you would have more truths than the Hindu. But I think the Hindu would say that until you let go of all of those truths, you won't find the truth. So basically, and again, I'm talking about the thing I've talked to you about over and over, and that is that dogma, I believe, is the opposite of faith. So if you have any kind of dogma at all, but what you were talking about before with there being multiple paths in life, basically, that you could lead multiple paths, doesn't matter which religion, but yet you want to hold out and say that, oh, no, but you have the one true at the end, that's the destination, right? And what I would say is that, no, there is no one true up there. All paths, all destinations are correct.
How can all destinations be, I mean, all paths be correct, though? Like,
Well,
how does
it's
that
like a
work out if
mountain.
there's a God?
It's like a mountain. Everybody's trying to get to the peak, and people are just taking different paths.
Yeah, but there's
how
no
can
peak.
how can
No
a
peak.
reality created by an all-knowing, all-powerful, morally perfect being have incorrect paths?
Yeah.
Besides, Rebecca, weren't you just making the argument that all paths can be correct? I mean,
No!
if God's going to get you
Darn!
anyways.
Guys,
So
this is and I know I'm
You're getting
making
her
a
in
subtle
trouble.
point. No, it just I'm making a subtle point, and I know there's lots of, and I'm frustrated that I didn't communicate it well, because I don't want people to misunderstand this. And like I said, I've had Christians making videos against me and calling me a pluralist.
Let's help Rebecca not have videos railing against her
Okay,
mate.
so,
I'm
yeah.
all in favor of that.
Take as much time as you want to re-explain. You got some splaining to do, Rebecca. So.
Okay. What I'm saying is there is a God. He is real, and he wants to be known for who he is. He revealed himself through Jesus Christ. He saved the world through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. He is offering eternal life to all people who will receive the gift that he's giving. And he wants to welcome every person into his kingdom. He has provided a way for all people to enter his kingdom. That way, the one way that he has provided, is through the salvation of Jesus Christ. Now, what I believe that is different than some Christians, but there are other Christians who believe this, there's books written on it, is inclusivism, which means that the only way to be saved is through Jesus Christ, but you don't necessarily have to have information about the plan of salvation in order to be saved by Jesus Christ. So Jesus can save you whether or not you realize you're being saved by him. And I'll use an analogy. Let's say that salvation, getting to God's kingdom, is like swimming across the ocean. Okay? We all start out swimming. Okay? Some people see Jesus right away, and Jesus is in a rescue boat, and we get in with him. Other people don't see Jesus, but they're swimming hard trying to get to God's kingdom. Now, there's some people who aren't swimming at all. They're sitting on the beach. They don't care. They don't want to enter God's kingdom. Okay, but and so Jesus isn't saving them, but Jesus is saving the people who are desiring to be part of his kingdom and who are doing their best to get there. And so, they're not going to make it across the ocean on their own. Eventually, they're going to get tired and pass out. And you know what? Jesus is going to pick them up and take them into his kingdom by his power. So this is the example of those who may not know the plan of salvation, but they can still be saved by Jesus. So this is what I believe. Doesn't mean that I think anybody can live any way that they want and they're going to get into God's kingdom. I don't think that all religions are good. I think there's probably some truth in every religion, which is that sticks around for a while, because, people, we have a tendency to find truth. I think there is some truth in Buddhism. There's some truth in Hinduism. There's some truth in Islam. But I think the greatest revelation of the truth is in Jesus Christ. And so Christians are more likely to have more more correct information about God. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily closer to God than, let's say, a Muslim, because I have some Christian friends who I don't think they know God as nearly as good as my Muslim friends, some of my Muslim friends do. Why? Because it's not all about having correct information. It's about a relationship with God.
I got a question.
Yes.
I do too. I have just one critique, but I'll go after you go, since you went.
Okay. How about with me, Rebecca? Me, I try to be a good person, and I literally try to do the best thing to be as critical as possible to try to find any type of truth. It's not out of hatred. It's not out of fear. It's none of that. It's specifically trying to find the truth. For me, I couldn't worship God even if he was real. I mean, I can't see it as a moral person whatsoever. I can literally say I would jump in the pit of hell. Like, I would literally run to the pit of hell instead of going to hell. Like, that's where I stand on the issue. Because I just think of, for me, I just think if this being is infinitely great, he would start me out in heaven. I don't see why we would be on a lesser playing field than when he could literally create us in heaven. And any excuse I see is just putting God back and putting a barrier up to a God that's supposedly all powerful.
Okay, so that sounds like a statement, not a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering what you think about that.
Well, I think that's an understandable position, and I don't think God is demanding worship or needs it from you. I think worship is a natural response. When you experience the glory of who God is and you know his love, worship is very natural. And I think God understands where you're at. And I think so. I think there's no better place to be than a seeker of truth. If you're seeking truth, then
how do you know what's true? You're like, you may a lot of these things that you're saying, they're completely speculative on your part. They're just views that you personally have. But I could take somebody else who is another religion. They would say, you're totally wrong. They have the truth. They would say, Christianity's not true, and my religion is completely true. So there's no way of really telling which one of you guys is actually true. And this is the whole thing with atheism, is that we just don't see any way of evaluating these truth claims at all.
I think that's a great point, Jason. I say that exact point a lot myself.
Now, just to possibly add a little humor to the conversation, and maybe I misheard something,
with love.
Going back to the analogy, I don't know why anybody is swimming towards Christ if fundamentally Jesus is on a boat.
If what?
I said, I don't know. You're in your analogy, and again, maybe I misheard.
Why aren't they in a boat?
No, you said that they're swimming. Everybody's swimming towards Jesus, except obviously the people that stay on the beach. But then Jesus comes around on a boat and can pick them up. Why are they swimming?
I said they were swimming toward the kingdom of God, like a desire to be with God.
I understand
my question is this: why does God only save those that know better? So, it would be a lousy firefighter or a first responder that only saves people that ask the firefighter for help or are already doing their best to save themselves, but that firefighter ignores people who are infirmed, people who are addled, people who are junkies, whatever. Those people can die because they're not making the right choices or just don't perceive the danger. So we wouldn't hold someone who's a firefighter to that standard. We'd call that person evil, but God gets a break from that. So this analogy immediately starts to kind of break down. I've never understood this. God saves those who are willing to acknowledge they need saving. cool. That's not great. That doesn't make him look good.
Jefferson, my analogy wasn't meant to be stretched to this point. I do think God is actively trying to save everyone.
So he can't save some people.
Yeah, he cannot, because he has given us free will. So he's not going to force anyone into his kingdom. So no one's going to be left out because they're sick or they're
But he is by default forcing them into hell. We're immortal beings based on this narrative. We are going somewhere, and so if I don't know there's a heaven or hell, I get sent to hell possibly, even though that's not what I want. I know there's lots of Christians that will be like, well, you didn't want heaven, so you get the fiery pokey place.
Well, Jefferson, the idea, and you're getting this from, I know you are getting this from many Christians and Christian tradition, but the idea that we are immortal beings is not in the Bible. It is.
So you're an annihilationist.
Yes.
I want to see
we are mortal. We are conditional. We have immortality granted to us by Jesus Christ through his salvation, but we are mortal beings.
So you don't believe in eternal conscious torment? There's no hell?
No.
Okay.
So Rebecca, my sister just called me to yell at me for being rude to you with the Joe Cocker comment. So she was listening.
Oh, really? Oh, tell your sister I said hi. I didn't think you were being rude to me. Okay, but I like.
I get it from all sides. I get it from all sides.
I got one more tough thing to pick at, and I'm sorry, Rebecca. You're very nice.
You're not bothering me.
We don't want to roast you.
No, you roast me, guys. I love
this
being
is a
in
no
the,
roasting Rebecca channel.
No, I love it. I love being.
You all are too nice to her. Roast her.
Roast her.
Who said that? Who said that? Mr. J?
That was Jefferson.
The evil clown. That was the evil clown. That was not me.
Okay.
Oh, that was Jay.
But for me, I can't see of any being asking for belief, worship of any type. I don't see those as criteria for a God needing to have. If a God was truly loving, I think he would just create the world and just be done with it. Give us the life that we would have, give us all the foundations to build our own life, and just leave it be. We might die and then he creates us again. That makes sense. If you're going to try to give us free will and the being that tries to love, he just creates you. That makes sense. But when there's like a reward and punishment system to where you're not in the best place right now, it makes no sense to not do that. I mean, why am I on Earth when if I die and I meet certain criteria, I get to go to a better place? I don't think an infinite being, an infinite power, would even give us criteria. I don't understand why there's criteria.
Well, it's part of the plan or the game.
Yeah, but why? It's like, why would a God need a criteria when everything is already set and it's already... if he wants it's done, it's going to be done already. There's no sense for a powerful being to make some criteria for certain people. It just makes no sense when he can automatically just do it.
Okay, when my sons were like 8 or 9 years old, they were playing all of these fantasy games with each other, and they would each get certain powers, right? And then another one would get another power that was greater than the other one, and pretty soon they would both have infinite powers, and the game ended because it was no fun. There's no
or
game.
they'd get mad at each other and start a fight.
So what would be the game, if...
I think what he was implying was what seems to be a possible paradox with the fact that if God is omnipresent, he's already been there and done that and seen who actually makes it to heaven.
Yeah. True.
But again, you still can't have that happen without those actors taking those actions to get there. But that's all a paradox and how we perceive kind of crap.
And also the notion of it.
It's not even that. It's just the fact, like, we can live a life. We can have like what we believe now as. I'm an atheist, of course, y'all know this. I believe everything happens through natural processes. I think a God can just create a natural world and still have it fulfilling. And still, okay, when you die, you just get reborn. That makes sense, and it can still give you more. Evil can happen, and that could be a consequence of free will or whatever you want to say. But then again, you can just say, well, everybody's going to be reincarnated, everybody's going to live a different life, so it really doesn't matter. You're still going to enjoy certain things. With heaven having this criteria of when you die, you spend an eternity in heaven when you're just meeting some certain criteria on this planet and never having a change. Like there's certain people that are automatically not meeting that criteria, and that's either going to die, dissipate, or just going to burn in hell. And there's people that are going to go to heaven. I don't see that. I don't see how that makes sense.
But didn't you say you didn't quite believe that, Rebecca? That you're what do you call it, an annihilationist? That you don't believe we're immortal?
Right. I don't. So we're mortal beings, but we're being offered immortality through Jesus Christ.
Okay, and what would that immortality be?
Well, life in God's kingdom forever.
Yeah.
For me. For me. So
physically or spiritually?
Well, both.
Like for me personally.
We're physical and spiritual now, and we will be physical and spiritual.
You get the benefit of praising God forever for all time and doing just that only.
So we physically are in heaven.
Congratulations,
Absolutely.
you're a cheerleader forever.
Like our physical bodies.
Yes.
It's a
You are
transformed.
going to be
It's a
physically
transformed
raised.
body. It's a resurrection body. It's
just. I'm sorry, Rebecca. It's so out there that like there's so many problems with all this stuff. I just don't even know how people.
With that?
Well, wait,
our bodies die.
Rebecca, do you believe that heaven becomes a place on earth? Is that how you meet the?
I believe that God is creating a new heaven and a new earth, and that really it's a restored earth. So
don't forget the New Jerusalem. That's
where
like
is it?
Don't forget New Jerusalem.
What was wrong with the first? What was wrong with the first one?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Never mind.
I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
No. I'll be quiet.
Well, we're jumping around wildly. Yeah. I'm not going to be able to answer all your questions about the afterlife.
Oh, come on!
What I know that's mentioned.
Come on.
Go ahead.
It's like playing tennis with 10 balls at the same time.
I just have one thought. Will I be able to
roaster? Good, right, Scott? Yeah, roaster.
Yeah, let Jefferson's been waiting to jump in, and then I'll answer because I wanted to say something about Jefferson's comment too. Go ahead, Jefferson.
So the odd thing about this is even if the position of a Christian is to be an isolationist, the point of this belief system is that we were perfect and then we're fallen and then we're offered salvation through Christ. And so there's two slight different ways of looking at this, either by pursuing Jesus and whatever that entails, we're rewarded with eternal life. Or if we don't accept Jesus' salvation, then we are punished with eternal conscious torment. If we're like Rebecca, an annihilationist, well, that's not going to happen. We're simply going to poof out of existence. So no harm, no foul, I guess. But there's a possibility that we get rewarded with eternal life to live with Jesus forever. However, part of that process was that we had to live in a world made imperfect by God's curse.
Right.
So this is a very convoluted and strange story. So literally what this God had to do was create a world that was evil, cruel, mean-spirited, harsh, in order to force people through a crucible, and those that excel at either being kind or good, quote unquote, or whatever, get a prize, and those that don't add up are simply deleted. That's still monstrous.
Can I put one caveat in this? Not only that, right? Not only has this God created this world and had put this crucible there for people, right? Like you have to obey these certain criterias, right? Okay. He knows which people are going to win the race and which people are going to get those criterias. he knows exactly what's going to happen. So why not just put people in heaven so everybody gets the same criteria? There's no reason to make people suffer when literally you can give them all these ideas that they would have on earth, like all the benefits of earth and the whole point of suffering or free will. God can do that because he's all powerful and he can give you those things without having you to come on earth and just bring you up into heaven. There is no point for this earth or a heaven with God.
Do you guys hear my raccoons out there by any chance?
I hear some noises. Yeah.
Oh my God, they're going crazy. I'm going to have to go feed them.
Okay.
But wouldn't that be assuming that you know what the game is, what the ultimate purpose of all this is, right? To be assuming that God could just do this, or God could just be a totally nice guy, not have any evil, get rid of everything. We're kind of assuming that we know what the ultimate game is, right?
Well, one thing I want to make a quick comment on is it's kind of interesting. Raccoons. I had a professor of missiology back in my seminary days that got into trouble with the board of directors or whatever at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary because he wrote a interesting but brief journal article in our, institutional theology journal about an open option for grace or something like that for people who have not heard, because that's usually how it's billed is what about those who haven't heard? Well, he kind of wrote along the same lines as you're discussing, but you were also a missionary. So I'm wondering if there's something about having your boots on the ground in a foreign land, seeing the goodness in other people of different religions and things that helped you turn that way, which I think is good.
Maybe
recognizing the goodness in other people of other beliefs is a positive in my book.
And I think it may have to do with that, but I do think it's also our vision of who God is. And that's actually what I loved about what Jefferson said earlier. He was like, if as a firefighter, we rescue only those, like he just painted a beautiful picture of how people should be rescued, even if they're not doing their best or they're in a variety of situations. Like they should be rescued, and we try to rescue all. And I think if we start with the vision of God, that he is so good and that he really does love us more than we love any person. Like if I love a person, if I desire that person to be saved, then if I just think about a being that is perfectly good and loves so much in such a greater capacity than I do, then I'm going to have a better, view toward God's salvation for other people and his willingness to save. So, in Jefferson, to respond to what you were saying about, the garden and what God did. God created a cruel world. Actually, the Bible says that when God created, it was very good. And so I don't blame God for the state of affairs that we have right now. I blame human corruption on that we actually did have free will. God gave us more than just free will. He actually gave us real responsibility. He gave us real power, and he doesn't yank back that power every time we abuse it, right? So he gave us power. We abused it. The world looks like a horrible place right now, but God has a plan to restore for all who desire to be restored. God has a plan to save, and that Jesus's salvation is much more powerful than Adam's and Eve's sin, than the sin that entered the world. That Jesus's salvation is so much more powerful than that. And so God has a plan to restore all things. With regard to what Corey said, Corey, I cannot speak about what God should have done and blah, 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 blah. I don't know what God should have done. Maybe you could have thought it up better. Maybe if you were the creator of the universe, things would have gone differently. But what I can do is speak about what the creator has done according to the Bible. And this is his plan of salvation. And I think it's a pretty good one. Jason, you said, how can we know who's right? You know what? It's a very confusing world. There's a lot of different ideas out there. And, you know, if you don't think I'm right, I mean, I think there's a good way to seek out the truth, and that is ask God. Ask
how do we
him.
know that? How do you do that? But but wait a minute. How have you ever asked
there it
God
goes.
and he's
There it goes.
responded?
He just opened the door. He's going for it. I knew he would. Go,
Have you
go,
got-
Jason. Go. Do it. Do it.
Have you asked God and he's responded to you?
Yes.
And in what way did he respond? Like, did he speak
in
to
many
you?
ways. Not in an audible voice. I've never
How do you
heard
know?
that.
But how would you know that it was actually God? It's
Wow.
hard. I
Oh my
mean,
goodness.
My only
wait, hold
there's
on.
no.
Before
I
we
know
go to-
there's no answer to it. I know you don't. It's okay that
I have videos on this. Go listen to my God speaking to me.
Here
video,
comes
okay?
Descartes.
But
Jason, do Descartes' demon. Do Descartes' demon.
I actually want to follow up with a quick point.
Okay,
The world that you're describing, I know that a lot of Christians, that I think narratively they go with this idea that God creates a perfect world, and then the world is fallen, and then that is God's perfect world. Though the fallen world requires the salvation.
Somebody's echoing.
Jefferson. Oh, okay. Maybe
It
it's
wasn't-
Steve.
It wasn't echoing until Steve came back.
Let me get out and get back.
Oh yeah. That
From a
did it,
Christian,
yeah. Okay.
from a Christian perspective, a world that does not require Jesus' salvation is less perfect than one that does. So the narrative, the whole point of it, of God's creation, is that ultimately they are going to come up short and they're going to require Jesus' salvation. So the harsh, cruel world filled with hardship and sin is God's perfect world. I know that's not the typical biblical thing, but narratively, that has to be taken seriously in order for the story to make sense. Otherwise, Jesus is just a salve to what was other to just he's plan B, but that's not what most Christians believe. Jesus can't be plan B from an all-knowing God. He has to be plan A, which means that people had paradise, did something wrong, were kicked out of paradise, and that's all part of the plan.
Hey,
So-
can I sidetrack over to Jason for a question real quick?
Sure.
All right, Rebecca, I'll give you a chance to breathe. I think you need one.
Yeah, you need a
Jason, I was looking up
You
the.
don't give her room. Are you mad?
No,
just kidding.
come on. We're not trying to pick on Rebecca.
I know. I'm just joking.
Descartes' demon, and part of the rationale is that the demon is not omnipotent, right? So is Descartes' demon trying to show that you don't know if God is all powerful or not? Or
Isn't Descartes' demon just it's the original, like, you're in the Matrix, it's the hard solipsist position.
But people argue that the demon itself is not omnipotent. It's just super powerful. So is the part of the point of the conversation to say how do you know if something's super powerful versus all powerful? Or is that like completely not the point?
I don't know. Jay's the one that brought it up. I'll let him answer it. He's the one that brought up Descartes' demon. I don't really. I mean, I don't even know if I know the Descartes'
I brought
demon.
it up as a joke, you fucking rubes. Just
God damn it! All right, I'll go ask Leo. He knows everything.
I was like, what?
He knows everything.
I mean, it's kind of like. I mean, we all know like the hard solipsist position, if that's what you're saying, Jorge.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm not familiar with it either.
Well, I think it goes to the fault. I think it goes more to falsifiability. How did you determine it's this over that, and vice versa? That kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I think Otangelo is angry. Is Otangelo angry again?
Otangelo doesn't always agree with me. Maybe is he not liking my
No, he's angry at me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's just angry.
answers
He's
than
just
Andy.
angry generally. But all these specific, like, I'm not going at you, Rebecca, but everybody's
no,
like,
you're fine.
They're all taking these very specific positions. My position is much broader, which is that the statements that you're making are, as you had mentioned before, that you have faith, and you've had this personal experience with God, and that has led you to come to some of these conclusions. My position is that these ways of coming to so-called truth and having these personal experiences are all extremely subjective, and we know that they're subjective because all kinds of people have these differing experiences. And even amongst Christianity, there's like, take 100 Christians, they all have differing positions. And so while you might say that all those, you could say like, I was trying to get at it, like all those people are correct. They all have a path to God, which you were like, that's not necessarily correct. But the point is that if one path is correct and the other paths are not correct, I don't see how you could make that determination. Your position is you just know that that's the correct path. That doesn't seem to me to be an effective way of figuring out what is true and what's not true, just by saying, I've had this experience. I know it's true. I don't know how I can tell you I know it's true. I just do know it's true. That is not very compelling to me. That's what I would say. Maybe you're right, but I just don't see how it's very compelling.
I know, Jason, and I don't expect you to take my word for it, but I actually think you're a lot closer to coming to this revelation than you might think. So
maybe I am.
I feel like,
Wait, who's closer, him or Speed? Because you said this
they're
about.
both pretty close. I think they're both pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to get you to declare like a front runner, but okay.
Yeah.
I've went to church for many years, and I have like I don't know if I've told anybody this, but like when I was younger, I was in like, I was kind of culty. It was like an esoteric astrology group for like multiple years. It was like the works of Alice Bailey and Helen Blavatsky and all the probably the black arts, as Rebecca might say. And then, but I went back to church. I've read all the Carlos Castaneda stuff. I've done a lot of exploration in spiritual aspects. So I feel like that I've
Sounds like Jason's farther along than you are, Mike. You need to kick it up.
So Jason, are you aware of where the Carlos Castaneda stuff ended up and all the women that disappeared?
What?
Yeah. You mean like what actually? Well, supposedly that he was what's called a Nahuel, which is like Don Juan was a Nahuel, which means that he's like the spiritual leader, and he was shaping Castaneda supposedly to be a Nahuel. But then at some point he was like, "You're not a Nahuel," and there was this other guy in Arizona, and the women went with the other guy. It was really like, and then Castaneda ended up going back to UCLA and like, and then supposedly wrote some of these books, and then he died. But there is a big question as to whether Castaneda, whether he made it all up, whether Don Juan actually existed. There's a lot of theories around that.
I believe the consensus is that he made it all up, and I think he admitted to as much. But he still stood behind the validity of the ideas.
Yeah.
I think it's actually pronounced Castaneda as well. Just to let you know.
How's it pronounced?
Castaneda.
Oh, is it?
I don't know how it's pronounced, but every time y'all say that name, I keep thinking of little things that go clickety clickety click.
Well, I served with a guy with the same last name.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, I feel like exploring all these differing facets of religion made me come to the conclusion that none of them are true, that they are all just manifestations of our complicated brains and social dynamics to explain unknown things and our fear of the unknown. That we're afraid.
That's actually a religion itself, Jason.
But have you sat down? Have I told you about the gospel according to Ahura Mazda? Have we sat down and had that conversation? I'm just kidding, Jason.
Okay.
That's Zoroastrian.
I'm very gullible.
Ahura Mazda is in Zoroastrianism.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
that's the god in. Is it the good good representation or the bad?
Oh, I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what it is. I just know it's Zoroastrian. It's part of Zoroastrianism.
Yeah, my ears always perk up when they say Uhura Mazda because I drive a Mazda.
So do I.
Yeah.
Religion can be very powerful. I mean, like when you are in times of dire straits and suffering and personal issues internally, that religion can be very comforting. It's comforting to know that there is this God who will be there when you die, and he's there to, when you were struggling and there were 2 feet, what's the walking in the sand story? God was carrying you. It's all
The
very
footprints, yeah.
Yeah, I know that's not from the Bible. I don't.
Footprints in the sand. Yeah, that's a classic meme.
Classic Christian meme and poster.
So, Jason, what if religion isn't about any of those things, but it's about a way to live, a way to be, basically at a real simple level, like an innate way to just be in your life? Like if you get, consider that my raccoons out here or squirrels are spiritually perfect. And we are, as humans, somewhat moved from that. And yet we can get back to some of that. We can get back to that naturalistic, pure way of being where we just live our lives and we do, what
Yeah, but Speed, I don't think anyone here is really interested in chewing ticks off of one another's backs. But anyway.
Oh my God. Okay. It's a fucking point, Jay, with your humor. I know.
It
and I know you
depends
didn't
on
miss
how-
the point. You just joking.
Depends on how harsh
I
living
have a way of
conditions
dealing
get.
with people like
Oh, now I have a tapeworm because.
Oh. To underscore kind of what you were saying, Jason, I remember when I ran across the, I can't remember, it was either the interviews or lectures by Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
Back, it must have been the 80s or whatever. I found that to be so fascinating. But, I think it was called the perennial philosophy, looking at the different myths and what they talk about and how people identify with them. It is powerful. The symbology, if you get into understanding it is very powerful for most people. And if you open yourself to it, you can maybe come to understand certain things about the human psyche that there are to know. And it was fascinating on the part of the way Joseph Campbell would talk about it.
Yeah, I think Joseph Campbell was pretty close to the truth.
I'm going to say I was one of the most Christian person you would ever meet, and I'm like the furthest away from being a Christian possible now. I tell the story over and over again. When I grew up, I was saying prayers and praying every single night. It was routine. I went to go get something to eat and I prayed. And when I grew up, I'd still never read the Bible. I was growing up. And then about 16, 13, I got really invested. I started reading the Bible, went to church, went to Sunday school, and I fell in love with this one girl. At that point, I was so in love with this girl. I wanted to be with her. I wanted to marry her. I wanted to do exactly what the Bible said, literally be a virgin and all that until marriage. I was dedicated. I wanted to become a pastor. I wanted to do it all. But
that sounds like every story in my
life.
Yeah,
come on. What happened? What's the punchline?
Okay.
I had the same thing happen to me. I prayed really hard, and I was really wanting to be I really wanted to make it in the shrimp industry. So I was going to church every day, and I was praying, and I even joined the choir. And then eventually, God sent this really big storm, which damaged all the other shrimp boaters, and I was able to make millions off the fact that
Shut up, Bubba.
There you go.
Of course, right. Bubba wasn't involved. Bubba died. Remember?
But
back to Corey.
Back to Corey.
Yeah. What was the enlightened moment, Corey?
Well, before all that, I want to go and how deep my Christianity was. I was like buying CDs for Christmas, like Christian CDs, Toby Mac, Casting Crowns, a bunch of other Christian artists.
Casting Crown. Oof. I don't know you, Corey. I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Newsboys. I was listening to them on a daily basis in the car, everywhere. I was wearing the cross. I was doing that. I mean, I got a picture of me wearing the cross.
Who are the newsboys?
And I wanted to get a tattoo of a Bible verse. That's how I was dedicated. Nobody can say I wasn't. And I was willing and reenacting times where I would literally be like, okay, I would die for Jesus.
Do you still have the tattoo?
No, I don't have no tattoos of Jesus. I said I was going to, never got.
Oh, you were. Oh, I was thinking that you probably did because I was going to say that's literally the definition of a walking contradiction. But either way,
yeah, I just dodged a bullet there.
When I was a kid, I thought I was enough of a Christian when I was younger to think like, yeah, I'd be willing to die for Jesus. And then I came to the realization, wait, I'm not going to die for him. He can resurrect. So.
Oh yeah, I one-upped you, Jeff. I went with the shaved head and the cat of nine tails.
Dude, I cried watching the crucifixion. Like literally, I made myself cry. Like if I didn't cry, I felt like there was something wrong with me.
You mean like the Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson?
Yeah,
movie?
like Passing of the Christ or video or something.
Is it bad that
I was a hard-on Christian. Like there was no.
Rebecca, question for you: are you a once saved, always saved?
Me?
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'm a once saved. You have to try really hard not to be saved anymore.
All right. So, are you talking about like that deny the Holy Spirit thing, right?
Well, look.
Nice gray area, Rebecca.
Is Corey going to heaven?
Look,
that's what I'm asking.
No, I lean heavily toward once saved, always saved, but I leave room. I think there's a few verses that point to the ability to become an apostate, to truly reject the faith. I don't think you can sin your way out. So I think Jesus Christ forgives all your sins, and you can't sin too much and then lose your salvation or anything like that. But I do think that you need to stay in the faith,
Okay, so I guess second question on that just came to me. Is it possible for a human to know that another human has lost their salvation?
I don't think so. No, I mean, and that's why, like, I am not going to tell any human being on earth, oh, you're not, like, I know where your eternal destination is. Other than, I mean, I feel like anybody who has faith in Christ, I can say you're saved, but, and give them assurance of that salvation.
Okay. So it's very possible that Corey is going to heaven given his story.
You know what? I'm very encouraged to hear Corey's story. I'm encouraged to hear Jason's story. I'm encouraged to hear anybody who once had faith in Jesus Christ, because I think it's a lot easier to get back.
Corey's story failed. It just falls automatically when he didn't have the balls to get the cross tattooed or some kind of religious picture tattooed on his body. It's done. Done.
But yeah, well, that was out of my control. I didn't have a car, and I was going to drive up there, but car didn't work. So.
Bullshit, Corey.
Somebody's breathing on the mic.
You had free will. You could have gone at any time.
That's a bummer, Corey, because then, if you had that tattoo, you could, show up in at the judgment seat and be like, look, Jesus, come on. I tattooed this for you. But,
right. But
anyway, back to your story, though. What happened? We're all like dying to hear. Like, what happened with the girl?
Yeah, Corey. If you couldn't afford the tattoo, there's a thing called a hot brand.
Well, it wasn't nothing with, like, the girl rejected me, but that didn't have nothing to do with it. I mean, she was going to school, and I found somebody else. It was cool. Still went to church, still hanged out, just wasn't involved as much because of how awkward it was. But then went to school. My friends, they didn't really sway any type of way. They just went to school. They weren't really religious like that, so if I brought it up, they thought it was kind of creepy. So my friends actually saw the change. It was me going to French, and 4 of the students one day were all alone, and the teacher was there. Somehow religion got brought up, and I was using apologetics. I was using, okay, they had to be a first cause and needed to be a beginning. And then they brought up the problem of evil and stuff like that to me, and I couldn't find no answer. I wanted to believe so heartily. I went to other Christian YouTuber, Bible Flop Box, School for Prophets, a bunch of other Christian YouTubers, trying to find some answers, and disliking any atheist type videos. I would watch them, but I still think to this day on the atheist video, the friendly atheist, I told him that he was going to hell, like, for what he was saying. And just watching some videos, watching Godless in the Near, Vice Rhino, Atheist Experience. And I was just watching these shows just because I thought my faith was so strong that nothing could shake it, because I was a diehard Christian. Started reading the Bible, and let's just say it didn't last long after that. I think it was like 6 months, and then got my first job, and then meeting another atheist. And
hold on, Corey, I just want to add something. Were you a Christian before you started reading the Bible?
No, yeah, I was reading it more. Like I would read it at church and stuff, but I was reading it more to try to understand it more. You get what I'm saying?
I was wondering because when you said that, I was like, wait, did you accept Christianity just based on peers, based on family, whatever, and you didn't really give too much, you didn't look too much into the writings of Scripture or whatever? I was just wondering. It was just for clarification.
Well, yeah, but I would always question. Like, people would tell me to shut up because I was always that skeptical person. I would always want to prove something to be absolute truth. That's why when I went up to church, I thought I was the smartest guy there, because I would just be like, you know what? How do angels go to heaven and stuff? I would always bring up little details like that. Yeah. And we would have different people come to church, so we would get different answers. So I was always the skeptical one.
So, Leo, before we get off on anything else, have you been keeping an eye on Sal Cordova's onslaught on physics and cosmology?
I have, yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. You need to do content, Leo.
Yeah, we do. It's been something else. I see Andrew's been following it fairly closely as well. So
everybody should keep an eye on that man.
Oh man, it's just
He's the best.
He had Andrew in a stream like 4 or 5 nights ago. Sal had Andrew, a rational empiricist, Andrew coming in his stream like 4 or 5 nights ago, and
he did?
Yeah, and yep, they were talking some of the cosmology stuff, and Sal was just, well, quite frankly, he was citing a bunch of cracks, like that. He wasn't citing anything mainstream at all. And Andrew pointed this out and was like, so like what are the credentials of like these individuals writing this? And Sal got visibly upset and was like, look, if you're gonna do this whole, citing the credentials and all this, if that's what you're gonna do, then we're just gonna stop this right now. And I commented and I said,
he's gonna be slamming books on his desk, so you gotta watch out.
Wasn't that on John Maddox's stream? Or
the one I saw was not. It was a stream that I might be able to find it and link it here in the private chat in a few minutes. But
please do.
I commented in the side chat there in the YouTube chat, and I said, well, Sal, but it is important because like you're not gonna go to your mechanic if you have a sore tooth, are you? Like the credentials that people have are gonna be relevant to understanding, who they are and what they know and how that plays into the questions you may have. If you want to know how a star forms, you don't go talk to the welder that works at the fabrication shop down the road. You go to the university on the other side of town and talk to an astrophysicist. Like this this is kind of how the world works.
To talk to
Well, if you talk about science,
parrot,
Jay
James
evaporates.
Downard, source methods.
Yeah, source methods.
You have to pay mind to those.
Anyway, so guys, Jason, atheists out there, right? What if there is an optimal way to live your life, basically, that there's, as a human being, you are a particular kind of organism, and there's an optimal way to live your life. And all of these various religions sort of get you part of the way there. That, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever, that I mean, we've noticed that humans have the habit of having a lot of religions around, right? I mean, so it's something we tend to do. What if we are doing this in order to get closer to this optimal psychological way of living your life, which, I mean, if you want to guess at what that would be, it would be to live in peace, to, take care of others, to be less selfish, to be.
Are you talking about some Hyperion type of? I'm sorry, but
Hyperion?
I don't think he is.
Okay.
What does Hyperion mean?
Please don't.
It's basically to try to optimize yourself to the best possible way. So we're just all here running off of each other to optimize.
Hyperionism is a rather interesting view.
It's stupid.
Optimizing would be counter to living basically an easy, peaceful life. Just like if you imagine water flowing down a river, basically flowing, it takes the easiest path. So it would be the easiest path for your life. The part that made you feel, for the most part, pretty comfortable every night, and you fell asleep and slept like a baby. And there are ways to live, basically, that as human beings, in our social life, our social nature, right, that end up being the very best way to live. So the best way to live your life. And religions kind of each one of them comes up with some dogma that tells you how to do that. But then people get all wrapped up in the dogma, and they forget what the intent was. It's like when you're up to your ass in alligators, it's difficult to remember that the initial objective was to drain the swamp, that sort of thing. So anyway, that's kind of like my overall view of life in general. I mean, my philosophy of life is that there is a peaceful, easy way to live. And I don't see religions. I see dogmatic religion as being very problematic, particularly in the 21st century, because of what it's doing with science. But overall, religion is kind of a method to lead you along these paths toward behaving well socially and with others, and ultimately making yourself happy. So in that way, I don't see religion as completely evil. I do see the dogma and the belief as evil. Like, okay, if this is your path right here, R1, Christianity, and you believe in nothing but that to the point where you'll try to you'll try to inflict it on everyone, then you're already off the fucking path. You missed the path by a mile, basically. Anyway, what do you think?
One of the religions is called Taoism, which Tao just means way.
Yeah, exactly. And Zen is sort of the easy way. The advice, the ultimate advice from Zen is shut up and chop wood. Just shut up.
My mother used to say that to me a lot.
Well, yeah, my dad used to say, "Go chop wood" all the time. Anyway, it's just an idea. So, but I was,
and in Buddhism, they have talk about right thinking, right practice, and all. It's not to be dogmatic, but it is to look for an optimal way to achieve.
Yeah, it's all psychology. It's psychology.
Nirvana.
Yeah, but then there are some Buddhists that will call me a psychological Buddhist, and they'll spit it out like it's a dirty word. You damn psychological Buddhists,
People take their sides and they make their tribes.
There's a lot of people that throw out words that they don't understand. One that I've been hearing from people is the word metaphysics. They toss it around like as if it means a bunch of wackery bullshit. And I'm just like, that's not what metaphysics. If you think metaphysics is just a bunch of wackery bullshit, you don't know anything about metaphysics.
Yeah, I have a way to explain metaphysics, and that wackery stuff I call junior high metaphysics, or naive metaphysics, basically. The idea, the brain of that shit and all that stuff, idealism, a whole bunch of them are just way off the mark. Doing real metaphysics, I think, is strictly a mathematical endeavor. I don't know.
Way I see stuff, I do believe human beings, because I think we all have something innately together. I do believe that we're just self-consciously trying to find something good. We're trying to help each other. I think that's just more through evolution and just from our surroundings, just from wanting to do good to other people. I think religion actually holds progress, to be honest with you, because beliefs rights to more beliefs. We see this all the time. If someone has a belief, other people will think, okay, let me take this idea from this belief and expand on it. I think empirical data, empirical evidence is the best way to go with anything. And when you add extra to it, you're just only slowing down progress, even if your intentions are good.
Yeah, I think ultimately you should start with naturalism and then work your way up from there. And first of all, figure out what the hell what am I? And and if I go and check a few books, I figure out I am a biological organism. Okay. And then I can read a little bit more and figure out what kind of an organism I am. And from that, I think you can come up and then you're on firm ground. You're on basically scientifically firm ground.
I think Star Trek settled it a few years ago. Basically, we are ugly bags of mostly water.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the water.
Okay. I would say that we should start with what we know, and we should start with what we can understand about reality. And I don't think that in and of itself prescribes any particular broader framework, whether metaphysical, philosophical, political, or otherwise. I think then what we should do is examine what it is that we know, the methodologies through which we can know it, and from there develop broader ideals about the best ways to look at the world. And I think that 9.9 times out of 10, 8 days a week and twice on Sunday, naturalism is going to come out ahead of every other potential, metaphysical framework for understanding the world, because it's the one that's the most parsimonious. It just is.
And it's a good one too, because it has good results for us, I think. But it also, if you follow naturalism, if you follow it all the way to the bitter end, you will find what I'm talking about, with there being a way that we should probably live our lives that will optimize happiness for us.
I mean, I think there's a way we should live our lives, but I can't say that anybody else would necessarily agree with that way.
Hey, go ahead.
Smoke dope.
No, I mean, it would be quite an in-depth discussion to talk about the ways in which I think we could improve society. But
yeah,
I think mine is just simply, my philosophy is just don't hurt other people. Do as best as you can to try to help other people.
Be excellent to one another.
Yeah, it's okay, I have this group of raccoons outside right now. There were about 20 of them, and one or two of them were running around growling and biting at the others, right? The other 18 were just trying to eat some food. And I think overall, in the end, the two that were running around growling got less food.
Can you name those two, Darth Dawkins and Jay Robin, for me?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, I will. They're little assholes, and it turns out they're the ones that are friendliest to me. They suck up to me more than the other ones do. But they're like,
That just sounds like every office I've ever worked in.
Who's that character on Beaver? The suck up kid.
Oh,
what the hell was his
Wally?
name?
Wally, or is
No,
that the
not
brother?
Wally. That was the brother. There was another one who was always sucking up.
Eddie.
Who was
Eddie?
it?
Yeah, Eddie.
Eddie.
something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Him. Yeah. That's who these two raccoons are.
You know what they're
Jeff.
doing? They're trying to set themselves up as priests. You're their god. Those two are trying to
Yeah.
become the priesthood.
Yo,
Well, that's
Jeff,
kind
the
of the
other ones how to
idea. I am training them to follow me in a funnel behind me, and then I'm going to get a big black robe, and I'm going to get a big staff, and I'm going to walk down the street with this group of raccoons and turkeys, deer following me, and I'm going to. It's kind of payback for my neighbors because they were a little snobby at the last neighborhood gathering.
Can I ask Jefferson a question quickly?
You can.
Jeff, have you thought about recording some of the discussions that you have on Clubhouse, like CHD and Tom Rabbit do, posting it to your channel?
I've posted one. I don't get on Clubhouse that often. So the one one that I did a premiere with Jay Robin, that was like the longest I think I've talked with just about anybody on there. And that was kind of accidental.
Have you seen like the videos on the channel Clubhouse debates?
Yeah, I keep an eye on them. In fact,
oh my God, some of the Muslims, they're so fucking pompous. Oh my God,
that is a whole side of things.
Much, and they don't know shit. It's so bad.
That I'm scared of getting pulled into the orbit of that one. Like I've kept my distance from any of that kind of stuff, and I know like if I dip a toe in, I'm gonna dive in head first, and it's like no, I don't want to do this because these guys are gonna drive me nuts, and then it's like, now I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to read the Quran again.
The two that throw me off the most, just with the level of dishonesty, are Hadi, I think is what it is, and then Dr. Khalil. I don't know if he's actually a doctor, but those two. And then there's another one, Ilyas, who really likes to push contingency arguments, utilizing a completely differently worded version of the PSR that he swears to God is not the PSR, and it definitely is.
So
It's
Jefferson,
so bad.
I was just about to Google Clubhouse, and then you said what you said, and I decided nope, and I shut.
Don't do it, Speed. You will not like Clubhouse.
Nothing good can come from it.
Well, I think it's fun, but
yeah, I mean I will every once in a while there's a decent conversation happening on there, and I will listen in while I'm working or something like that. But I very rarely jump in to talk because a lot of the ones that I will check out, there's a lot of really volatile personalities on there, which just seems to kind of go hand in hand with
know what, Jefferson?
These topics. So
game over. You've been folded like a chair, caught with
like
your
a
pants
cheap
down. Dude, I was watching one, so I'm assuming you know who John Lee is by now.
I have not kept up real close with that drama, but I do know a little bit about it.
You know the name.
He's a trip.
So
yeah,
he was in a discussion with Darth Arianis, who's the one that did the whole "you've been folded like a chair, caught with your pants down."
Yeah.
And John Lee, this is what he says: you've been you've been caught like a chair, folded, or whatever it is that you said. Dude, it was so fucking funny.
The controversy, the last controversy that I heard about with John Lee was the same as the one that I heard about 4 weeks ago, where he said something outlandish and people called him on it, and then he denied saying it even after they showed him a recording.
Sir.
This is you saying the crazy thing we just called you out on. You can't trust your lying ears. You just said it. We have it recorded, and he'll just deny it ever happened. He is profoundly entertaining.
Yes, him, and there's another guy, Matt Adams, that's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, he's a trip.
We gotta shoot it in the head, guys.
Oh man.
Yeah, we gotta.
Speed's such a bummer.
I am a bummer.
It's funny because I know he's way tougher than this. He could go another 4 hours if he really wanted to.
Yeah, but I want to go eat some pizza and watch some TV.
It's always food. It's always food. I gotta eat food and watch some TV, guys.
Anyway, Leo, you got a channel. Hell, Jefferson, you got a channel. Go start a stream if you guys want to
I've got
probably gonna go listen to music after that.
Yeah,
Same.
but actually, me too. I do have a stream 10 a.m. tomorrow morning Eastern time. So,
what are you going to be talking about?
Good.
I'm going to be finishing a review of that J. Robin discussion with Roger Smith, the one they had on.
Okay.
I did part 1, so I'm going to do part 2 is where it gets fun because they both J. Robin loses it, and then even Roger Smith kind of loses patience, which he's a pretty cool cucumber for the most part, but yeah, even he gets a little miffed. So yeah, it's
and Andrew Cummings says that he has a quick question for me, but I did want to say there's a channel out there. I don't know if you guys are subscribed to it yet, but if you're not, you all should be. It's just PSF. They used to go by Promethean Secular Frontier. Yeah, I will be on there next. Well, I should do yes next Wednesday, but this next coming Wednesday with Ben Watkins, hopefully Emerson Green and Danny, and we will all be talking about consciousness and philosophy of mind.
Oh boy, where is that?
I on PSF. I am a physicalist. Ben Watkins is a physicalist. Emerson is a panpsychist, and the three of us are all naturalists. And then there's Danny, the non-naturalist property dualist. So this will be a very interesting discussion.
Be there, but that would be cool. Okay, so Andrew, why don't you come in the back room and you can ask your question for Leo, and we're going to shoot it in the head. Okay.
Thank you, everybody. And Jefferson, I'm going to go subscribe to you. Thanks for the discussion.
You can't leave yet.
Yeah, I'm not leaving.
Hold on.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, goodbye, cruel world.
Wait.